tear gas, rubber bullets, unlawful arrests, police brutality, just like beating us up. I just remember running all the time. Just talking about it now, it's actually dangerous, but I mean, I don't care because that's the reality. And if you're trying to hide that, then there's something wrong with you. I don't want to die. Like, no one wants to die, you know? So that's when I started considering maybe I should get out of here.
Welcome back to another episode of Women of Tomorrow, and we're in Dubai. If you are new here, thank you so much for taking a moment to click on this video. Women of Tomorrow is a platform dedicated to women positioning themselves for success and longevity. So do us a favor and comment, like, subscribe. Widad, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Welcome
Thank
to
you.
Women of Tomorrow. I'm so excited to have you here.
So am I.
I just want to get right into it. I'm really inspired by the work that you're doing. I saw you on Instagram, and the whole team was just like, "Let's get her, let's invite her." So thank you for being so willing to come and meet us here.
Of course.
Where are you from?
I'm Lebanese.
You're Lebanese,
Yeah.
and so that's where you were born and raised.
No, I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, nice.
You just told me you were there.
Yeah, I was just there.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Jeddah. It's like a city
yeah.
on the Red Sea.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's right on the
I've heard
coast.
about that.
Yeah.
One of the ladies that I met at Middle East is from there.
Yeah, it's a really nice place.
Yeah.
It's a really nice place.
It's like a suburb of.
No, it's like the second biggest city.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And it's like known for the beach and like the chill vibes. It's a bit more like calmer than Riyadh. Riyadh is crazy.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's like always busy and stuff. Jeddah is like the chiller place. Like it's where you go for like to go to the beach, to hang out, to chill.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And so, do you go back often, or?
Oh, all the time.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
My dad still lives there.
Oh, nice.
My mom moved back she used to live there. Then she moved back to Lebanon with my siblings.
Oh, nice.
Because, I mean, they're in school.
Yeah.
And she thought that it's like best for them to kind of be raised in our own like country.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Does it? Do you have a big family? Is it a lot of?
So I have one sister and two brothers, and my mom and my dad. But I mean, my extended family is like huge. So I come from like a very family-oriented family.
Yeah.
Family member. We're all extremely family-oriented. So we're always having like these family gatherings. We're always like 10,000 kids running around, and like
that's
all my
amazing.
aunts and uncles are always like together. So it's like a
Yeah.
really nice thing to
Is
have.
that is that a cultural thing, like being family oriented, like where you're from?
I mean, in Lebanon, it's not 100% like that. Some people are a bit more individualists,
Okay.
and others are a bit more like collective when it comes to like family and stuff. But I
Yeah.
mean, my family is from the collective part because that's how we were raised, and we believe in, you know, the importance of family and kind of being united and just supporting each other no matter what. And I think that's really, really important, especially also with work, business. Like we always have each other's backs.
Yeah.
We always like give ideas to each other. Sometimes we even do projects with each other.
Wow.
So yeah, even my husband comes from that same mentality. So
That's
right now we're
beautiful.
working on something together, and yeah, I mean it's really nice to know that you have a support system that is unconditional. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
there's no there's no conditions to it basically.
Yeah. No, I can see that as I like get older. I see the importance of like that village, that community. Like my family, it's just me and my sister. So we had a small family. It's just me and my sister and my mom and my dad. My parents got divorced when I was young, but my mom had 12 siblings, and then her my
Wow,
dad
12
had
siblings.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
So you're just saying that nonchalantly, but I mean 12 siblings.
12. But you know, the crazy thing is, like, she was like the second to the youngest of 12. So by the time she was around, like, most of the kids were out of the house and they were kind of
Yeah.
just doing their own thing. So, and then she didn't raise us. I was raised around my dad's family. They were really like tight
Yeah.
because they really tried to be tight because they were kind of split up growing up, like went and lived with different people. So as they got to adults, they're like the being together was like really important. So
Yeah.
they made sure that we were together. But my mom's side of the family, she kind of kept us away from her family. So
Okay.
I didn't really grow up with like that large, and I think that it has affected me. It's affected me socially, like not understanding necessarily how to have large groups of friends or like
Yeah.
that type of community.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm
Interesting.
like, yeah.
Although I would think that, because you haven't gone through it with your own family, you would resort to having that,
I
as
didn't
a
know how.
substitute with your own like group of friends.
My sister's like
But
that.
see,
Yeah,
yeah.
my sister went that way, and I kind of went the other way. I'm just like, I don't need
Okay.
it. But I
That's
realized
fine
that
also.
but I realized that it's a huge part of just like human needs,
Yeah, of
just like
course.
having that village.
Yeah, of course. Humans by nature come in group, like they work in groups, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
like
Living alone and
tribes.
solitary it can make someone like possibly
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
hard time, dealing
Yeah,
with it. Dealing with all
isolation,
isolation is hard.
depression.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that comes from a lot of the depression and anxiety. I think comes from people just not feeling like they have a support,
Of course.
thinking that they're alone. So growing up, having the large family, was it always like as you were growing up, as you were a teenager or like an adolescent, was that all? Did it always feel like a good thing?
No.
Yeah, like
I mean, it's really about perception and age for me because it's about also how mature you are to kind of understand the importance of it. Obviously,
yeah,
like when I was a teenager, I would always like tell my parents like, just leave me alone. I just want to live my life.
yeah,
I would just leave the house sometimes, and
yeah.
sometimes I'd even run away from the house because my family's Arab, so we're a bit like conservative, just a
Okay,
bit.
yeah. What do you
And
mean when you say conservative? What does that mean
so
for
it
people?
means I mean, I love my parents, like, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, but not everything was okay. I mean, there was a certain, I think it's somehow everywhere in the world, but it's just in extremities, like, it's different extremities, like, no boys, no
Yeah.
going out past a certain, like, a curfew, and I was just like a rebel by nature ever since I was like a baby.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would do things that would make my parents just go crazy, like, just,
Really?
yeah, I would be grounded all the time.
So you were just like free spirited.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
I didn't care about the rules, and yeah.
Do you care about rules now?
I mean, it depends on what rules.
Yeah.
But I'm always skeptical of everything. I mean, obviously, some rules that are beneficial to you or to anyone
Yeah.
is there's something that I would not argue about. Like,
Yeah.
for example, I don't know, like the law or these kind of social rules, that are essential to having a healthy society.
Yeah.
But other rules like family rules or
Yeah. It's kind of just like
not just
who
rules,
says
like
no?
literally anything. I'm just skeptical by nature. I'm a journalist. So by nature, I ask a lot. Like, I want to know, like, how do you know that? Like, who told you this is fine? So I'm always like asking
Yeah.
to know, to kind of like paint that, image or that thought in my head.
Yeah.
I'm not just a passive person. I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
What? Where?
Always
How?
why.
So yeah.
I have two questions for that. So yeah, speaking of journalism, what is your professional title as of like today? What do you call yourself, or what do you call?
So I'm a journalist, but right now I'm like I'm in a transitionary period.
Okay.
So I was a senior reporter for CNN Business Arabic.
Okay.
And now I'm transitioning to a new place. I'm not gonna say where just yet.
Okay.
But I'm going back to, so before being a business journalist with CNN, I was initially an investigative reporter, an investigative journalist. So I'm kind of going back to that sphere.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you get into like investigating? I mean, it just came. It was the nature of your personality, just like inquisitive, like something is deeper. Like, how did you get into that space?
Growing up, I would always witness injustice, especially where I'm from. Lebanon is a really, really hard place to live in. There's always a lot of horrible things happening. There's always a lot of crime. There's a lot of corruption, by the state.
Okay.
And I always had, the curiosity to find out, like, why? Why are you doing this to your own people? Why is there a lot of police brutality? Why is there a lot of there's no transparency in the in the financial sectors in the banks, etc. And I just had that by nature. I just wanted to kind of give people answers all the time.
Yeah.
Like people would always say like, my situation is so shitty. I don't know why this is happening to me. I want to leave the country. And by the way, Lebanese people, there's 5 million, I think approximately. That's like numbers from like 3 years ago because we don't do statistics anymore. Yeah. So there's like 5 million living in Lebanon and 15 plus million living outside of Lebanon. So that's how big our diaspora is because of how shitty the situation is in our country. So I'm I'm patriotic. I'm a nationalist. I mean, by nature, I love my country.
Yeah.
Essentially, I love the fact that I'm Lebanese because there's a lot of meaning to it, and I was kind of doing it for my people. Like
Yeah.
I felt like we were a group of people who were facing a lot of injustice
Yeah.
and oppression and inferiority, because of the status quo of the country.
Yeah.
And I just wanted my people to kind of get answers. So, like I told you, I'm like a leader, I'm a questioner by nature,
Yeah.
ever since I was a child.
Yeah, I was gonna say how early were you like asking these questions to yourself or like, just wondering?
So, honestly, ever since I started comprehending politics,
Okay.
that specifically, but I mean, everything else, literally ever since I was like a 2-year-old child, I would always ask, my mom would always tell me, you would always ask me questions, you would drive me crazy. Like if for example, she has like a coffee in front of her, I would ask her like, Mom, what is this? She would say, this is coffee. I'm like, what is coffee? She'd go like, coffee is something I drink to wake up. I go like, why can't you wake up with something else besides coffee? Like, why is coffee the only? So I would always ask, and she would eventually like go crazy, like, leave me alone. Leave me alone.
Just leave me alone.
Yeah, I'm having my coffee. It's like not the time. So she would always tell me that, I was driving her crazy with all my questions as a child. So that evolved into politics ever since I started like listening to the news and understanding sort of like what's happening. Because my dad would listen to the news all the time, I would ask him like, what does she mean by that? Like the news anchor. What is this guest talking about? Why is X happening? Why is Y happening? So that's when my curiosity started to grow and I shifted. So in Lebanon, I had 2 years of education in Lebanon in school, and the rest was in Saudi Arabia. But my last 2 years in school were in Lebanon. So in Lebanon, basically, the last 2 years, you kind of shift into a more specific program in the curriculum.
Okay.
So my program was socioeconomics, and it had a lot of politics to it. So that's when I started like understanding and going into that field. So were you asking me how I started my career?
Yeah, I mean, that was great. Because I'm just wondering like how early on, did you start having this curiosity just about life? And I know that you spoke about in one of your other interviews about like sensitivity growing up.
Yeah.
And I feel like that must have had something to do with why you were so like compassionate towards your people and just like wanting to know, like,
of course,
you were sensitive to the things that were going on around you. Would you say the oppression in your country and what you've seen is more geared toward women, or is it just across the board?
So this is really complicated to explain, but I'm gonna try. Our system is a confessional system, so that means it's a sectarian system. They segregate groups of people according to what religious sect they come from. So that's confessionalism. But that aspect in itself, in my opinion, comes from the philosophy of patriarchy, because they believe that as a ruling class, they have the authority to dissect us in that way, because they think that, we're the oligarchy that's like ruling this country and we get to say what happens. And as a result, the woman is oppressed because of that structure of society.
Yeah.
Because it's mostly ruled by men. The entire ruling class. Women only entered our parliament not too long ago. And we've been a country that's been there for like, I don't know how many decades. It's been a really long time.
Yeah.
And women only entered the scene of politics, I would say 6 or 7 years ago.
Wow.
So it's like built upon that, aspect of kind of like being superior to women and just like being extremely sexist all the time. Even if women dressed a certain way, you know, in parliament right now, they even, like, members of parliament are hearing some sexist comments, such as, you're dressed a certain way, that's why you made it to parliament. Yeah, some one of my, you know, friends was also a member of parliament. She had to face that kind of, you know, commentary from a man. And it's really sad that it's still, like, we're in 2024
happening.
and it's still happening in my country all the time. I mean, women get harassed, they get catcalled.
And nothing is really done about it. It's
There
just,
is no judicial system for it to even be functioning, you know. It does not exist.
wow.
That's how shitty it is. I mean, I promise, I know it sounds crazy. There are no public sectors in my country. They're non-functional. There's no, basically our system is a democratic system, but it's really not.
Yeah.
It's like the same people for the past 50 years who are ruling us, literally the same people. So that means it's an oligarchy. We elect a president every 4 years. I think in the US it's
4 years.
every 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's, for us, it's the same. So imagine on the day of elections, no elections actually happen, and you just don't have a president. Ergo, you don't have any public sectors. You don't have any parliament, or I don't know what it is in the
Yeah.
US. You don't have anything. Nothing is functioning. No ministries, nothing. Nothing is functioning in Lebanon. Ergo, no police system is functioning. No judiciary system is functioning. So the
how does
crime is just like,
yeah, just rampant.
it's like, yeah, it's like free for everyone to do.
So are you ever get concerned for your family that's still there? And I mean, how are they functioning? How are they, like, I guess, surviving and thriving?
Yeah. So I come from an area in Lebanon that's it's up north, and it's a bit safer. I mean, essentially we own a house that is in an area that's a bit secluded from the rest of the society,
Okay.
purposefully, because otherwise they would be facing a lot of, you know, trouble on a day-to-day basis. So they kind of live in the suburbs, which is a bit more safe.
Okay.
The security is a bit decentralized. So each kind of village has its own municipality, and each municipality, you know, provides its own security for its own village. So it's extremely decentralized.
Okay.
So that area specifically is safe. And I mean, I just, you know, we just pray that nothing happens to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got out, basically. You said, did you say, I just want to see the world, I want to do more, I'm too restricted, I'm too oppressed here? Like, what was, because my mom kind of did the same thing. She was like, grew up in Compton, and like her siblings, they were just like gangs and drugs and that kind of thing. And she was just like, it was two out of the 12 that actually like went to college and, you know, became something more.
Wow.
But she got away, and I think it was just because she told me, basically, one of her teachers said, "You're really smart, you should do this." And that was really the spark that said, okay, I can do something different, I don't have to stay here. What was it for you that was like, okay, I'm leaving?
I think it was when I almost died. I mean, I was kind of persevering, is the word.
Yeah.
Or I was kind of perseverant for a long time. So from 2015 up until 2020, I was trying my best to kind of like go on, because like I told you, I love my country.
Yeah.
And even though financially I wasn't doing that well, and I wasn't depending on my parents, because that stopped a long time ago, I felt like, you know, as long as I'm fulfilling my purpose, that's fine. I don't care about the financials. I have my, you know, I have my girls, I have my family, I have my, if anything happens, I'm not going to end up in the streets.
Yeah, yeah.
So I kind of like was just taking it day by day. But 2019 was when the revolution erupted. It literally like erupted in all the streets. But at that time, I wasn't in Lebanon. I was somewhere else for a short period, like for like 6 months.
Okay.
I was in Germany at the time. But I came back from Germany with this whole chaos happening, the revolution, the protests. Everyone was in the streets, literally everyone. Wow. And I came back with this new hope, you know, that yes, my people are waking up. Let's go.
Yes.
Let's
Yeah,
get these
yeah.
bitches out of their seats. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I was like, I had so much soul put into this revolution. So much. For about a year, I did not leave the streets. I just went back home to sleep, and then I would wake up and get out of the house and go back to protests.
Wow.
And then COVID happened, and they were kind of trying to restrict us from protesting. But I mean, at the time, you see people dying from poverty, you see people dying from suicide. Suicide rates were like spiking at the time.
This was right before COVID or during
That was
COVID?
during COVID.
During COVID.
Yeah. I mean, imagine someone just like dying trying to escape Lebanon by sea to be an immigrant in, Europe, because Lebanon and Greece have only a sea in between. And that happened with the two girls from the Swimmers movie, if you've seen it on Netflix. If you've not, it's a movie about two Syrian girls who fled Syria through a boat, and then the boat couldn't handle all of that kind of, amount of people because there were so many people on one small float. And then because they're two professional swimmers, halfway through they had to kind of get out of the boat and to swim all the way to Greece.
That's true.
That is true, 100%. And I always hear stories
Yeah.
similar to this. And I hear stories of boats drowning and people dying, babies dying in the sea. So when you're hearing that type of stories on a daily,
Yeah.
you don't give a fuck about COVID anymore.
Yeah.
So you don't give a fuck about, I don't want to protest it because there's COVID, because
Yeah.
we're already dying.
We're already done.
We're already
Yeah.
dying. If we don't do this now, for me, like for us,
It's life or death situation.
yeah, and COVID was like, it's a flu virus. We got our, flu shots, and then let's just resume what we were doing.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, because of that COVID confinement, or like stay at home rules at the
Yeah.
time, a lot of people lost that kind of motivation and stamina to
Okay.
continue. So those of us who continued after that, confinement, were a bit less. But I was like one of them. We were like 100 people out of, I don't know how many thousand people.
That has to be incredible. Like, you're fearless. Like, because to already come from a country that you're seeing people dying, you're seeing people, there's so much crime, so much chaos, there's no judicial way to like solve anything or protect anyone. And you're out there protesting. And I think about the protests that have happened in the US, and
Yeah.
I can imagine that,
Black Lives Matter.
yeah, like it was like 10 times or 100 times worse in your country. Like,
I saw the videos. They weren't that worse. I mean,
what was happening? Like, what would a day in protest actually look like?
tear gas, rubber bullets, unlawful arrests, beating,
Wow.
police brutality, just like beating us up with the sticks that they had. And we would always, I just remember running all the time. I just remember like running away from these cops all the time. I mean, yeah, just talking about it now is actually not really, it's actually dangerous, but I mean, I don't care because that's the reality. And if you're trying to hide that, then there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
It's not us that are doing the wrong thing. It's
Yeah.
you who's doing that. If you're afraid, because I know a lot of people who are still right now being prosecuted by the police, and they've already fled. I have friends in DC right now. I have friends in Canada. I have friends in Europe. They all fled because of that system that we have. And they're still like sending them, warnings and stuff like, if you don't come, we're going to do this and that. And threats. I have a friend who also had her family house. It was raided by the police because she wouldn't like go to the investigation and just show up at the police station. It's crazy till now. I mean, they're leaving everything. They're leaving the third largest explosion in the world that happened in the port of Beirut. It's the third largest after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's the third largest. You left the investigation of that huge blast that happened.
Yeah.
That it was really out of this world. I can't even explain. I can't even begin to explain
Yeah.
how horrifying it was. You left trying to figure out who the fuck did that to go after some of like the protesters who were
Yeah.
initially essentially opposing that regime that essentially caused this explosion, because the cause of it was 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate stored at the port of Beirut for 7 years, and the authorities had no idea that it was stored right next to a firework container that
Yeah.
got lit on fire, and that caused that massive
Yeah.
7 years you had no idea?
There's no way.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Wow.
200, more than 210 people died instantly.
Wow.
More than 10,000 people were injured.
And they care more about protesters than the innocent lives.
Of course. And more than 200,000 or 300,000 people were displaced. They were homeless. In a second, you lost your home.
Yeah.
That's crazy when you actually think about it.
Yeah.
In 1 second, you lost it's blown up. You have no home anymore. And there's no such thing as insurance. There's no such thing as insurance. There's no such thing as the company, I mean the government reconstructing your house. You're on your
Yeah.
own over there. There's no system.
Yeah.
So it was apocalyptic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
It was crazy that day. That day was when I said, I'm not leaving yet, but I'm starting to kind of consider, because I almost lost my life.
Yeah.
And that was not, that's not something I want. I don't want to die.
Yeah.
I don't want to die. Like, no one wants to die,
Right. Yeah.
So that's when I started considering maybe I should get out of here. Maybe it's a lost case.
Yeah.
Maybe I should consider. And that's when my parents really had a hard time with me being there, because they had left and I was there, on my own. And they were just always, behind me with get out of there.
They were
Find
encouraging
another,
you to
they were
leave.
encouraging me to leave all the time. And I just didn't want to, but eventually I kind of had to, because there was a lot of there was another kind of near death experience. It was a near death experience, but I say it wasn't a near death experience because I think of the people who actually died, and I feel like I'm extremely blessed, and I was extremely safe in comparison to those people who were extremely injured or died, because I didn't have a single scratch. So
Yeah.
that's why I don't know what
It's
it
hard
is,
for
but
you to try to compare and speak.
It's a lot. I have a lot of guilt inside, and I just don't want to admit that it was a near-death experience, because some people lost their arms, some people lost their legs, some people lost their eyes.
You have guilt for feeling like for being alive.
For surviving, yeah. Of course.
That's insane. It's just to think about that you would have guilt for surviving when
Yeah.
that is what that's what we're here to do, survive, to thrive, self-preservation. I mean, yes, we're in communities, but I mean, wow.
Yeah.
That the people, that the circumstances are so tragic to where surviving leaves the survivors with guilt.
Guilt. That's how it's. You can never have it in a gentle, subtle way. You can never get out of it with nothing that you have in terms of injuries, whether it's emotional, mental, physical. Something is going to change in you. There's no way.
What do you do now? What do you do now to ease those emotions of guilt?
That's a very good question. I was not doing anything up until very recently, because in my mind, I survived and hundreds of people did not, and they were just a few centimeters away from me or a few meters away from me.
Yeah.
So that's crazy to think about. But I essentially understood that it's not my fault, and I kept reminding myself that it wasn't your fault, because essentially I was I held that mission that I thought I had in life, and I was just running with it 100 miles per hour.
That you're you're the advocate, you're the savior.
So then I developed that kind of savior syndrome, and that's when my friend, God bless her, she told me, you're not going to save shit. So just calm the fuck down, and you're not going to fix everything on your own. And I feel like it comes from my childhood, seeing so many things around.
Yeah.
And just me always trying to find the solutions so that my younger siblings and myself are not hurt. So I felt like when that happened and a lot of people lost their lives, a lot of people were injured and displaced, etc., that it was my fault, which ergo caused that survivor's guilt. But I mean, I had to go through a lot of therapy and I had a lot of support from my friends who always reminded me that no matter what you do, it's not in your hands. There's people in power that are responsible for this, and it's not you. And no matter what you do, no matter how much you help, you're gonna do a nice little individual initiative,
Yeah.
but you're not gonna change the wider picture.
You're not responsible.
I'm not responsible to change the wider picture. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a good place to be now from where you come from, of just like dealing with all that guilt.
Yeah.
Just to be able to kind of accept that. Are you in full acceptance, or is it just like a daily thing where you remind yourself?
Of course, it's a daily struggle. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not easy. There was a genocide. I call it a genocide when
Yeah, absolutely.
200, 300 people die in an instant. That's called a genocide.
Yeah.
And especially when there's a factor that caused it, that's not a natural factor. You know, it wasn't an earthquake, it wasn't a tornado, it was a blast that happened as
Yeah,
a
it
result
was
of
negligence.
negligence.
Yeah.
So I call it a genocide. It's not easy to be a part of it, but I mean, it's a daily work. You know, it's like a lot of people who were there at the same day or at the same time also say the same thing, that we think about it every single day. No matter how much therapy you do, no matter how much cleansing, mental cleansing, meditation, yoga, all of these things, you're going to think about it. It's just how you think about it, what you do with these thoughts, and how you treat yourself and how you deal with and talk to yourself and your inner child when these thoughts come,
Right.
is what, affects how you portray these emotions and how you deal with these emotions and how you act and behave around people. Because a lot of people develop like anger issues and anxiety.
It shows up in different ways.
Yeah, it shows up. Of course, it takes different shapes and forms.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of, emotional strength and intelligence to kind of like know how to navigate through such a sensitive bundle of emotions.
Yeah.
Extremely hard emotions to feel at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that you said emotional intelligence, because often people use that when they're speaking just about like romantic relationships, like know how to understand your partner and that kind of thing. But you're dealing with like emotions that have come from survival of yourself and your people. And you just mentioned that the emotions are gonna come up. Like they've kind of been imprinted, or the things that have happened have been imprinted on you, and it's not trying to keep them from coming up, but when they do come up, how do you look at it? And what do you tell yourself?
That's what emotional intelligence is. Actually acknowledging what emotions you have, what the kind of emotions that you have is, and how they come up and how you deal with them. That's what emotional intelligence is. And it's, to me, it's as important as, it's called EQ, and it's as important as IQ. It's, if not more important.
Yeah,
Because,
I totally believe that. Yeah,
100%.
because it's what we were born with, kind of just like our innate ability to survive.
Of course.
I wanted to ask a question about like how you were saying that your friend reminded you like you're not gonna save the world, and reminded you that it is not your fault, it is not your responsibility. And I think oftentimes when people are dealing with things like this, it's like, okay, what is the balance between it's not your fault or not your responsibility, but it also is your responsibility to make it through?
Yeah.
Like, is there a little thin line there when you're like, okay, I didn't create any of this craziness. I was affected by it. And so now I kind of have to take my power back and make it my responsibility to heal.
Yeah.
Do you ever go back and forth with that kind of idea of like, how do I release all responsibility, but then kind of take some responsibility back to heal? Yeah.
I mean, it's just, honestly, you said it, the answer is in your question. They're both completely different things. I didn't cause it, but it is my responsibility to heal from it. No one causes any kind of. Do you want any of the trauma, if you had any trauma
Yeah,
that
no.
happened to you, to have happened to you? I don't think so. But
No.
it is your responsibility to heal from it, and to go to therapy or just try to heal from it in whatever way that you believe is suitable for you.
Yeah.
And just like kind of dissecting those thoughts or that responsibility and understanding that, okay, so this happened to me, but this is not going to heal me, or none of my friends, my family, my work, the drugs, the alcohol, none of that is going to heal me.
me, yeah.
I'm going to heal me. I'm going to heal me. Some people go through the path of religion and just like finding that kind of rejoice, and others go through that the philosophy, I mean the therapy route or way.
Yeah.
And some combine both.
Yeah.
Some go into sports, so we all have different
Yeah.
ways to heal, but essentially understanding that it's 100% percent your own responsibility to heal. It's not 1% anything else. It's all you.
And you have to, like you said, you have to just dig in. You can't be afraid to dig in
Yeah.
to like, the people always say like, it's gonna be painful. Like some people shy away from healing because it's like, it hurts too much to relive the memories
Yeah.
or to bring it up, but you kind of have to go back there because if you don't go back there, they're still stuck like in your nervous system. They're
course.
still stuck in your body. So it's like you got to dig that back up and release it.
Or else it's going to manifest into something else.
Yeah.
There is nothing
Yeah.
that stays in the human mind without being manifested into something else, especially the things that you've suppressed in your subconscious. And I feel like I approach it in a certain way where it's basically, imagine that you're hearing a really funny joke, right? The first time you're going to laugh so hard, and then you hear the same joke again, you're going to laugh. And then the third time, fourth time, fifth time, you're not going to really laugh anymore. So it's the same thing when you're tackling what you've been through and your emotions, no matter how hard they are. The first time you're going to completely break down. It's fine. You have to know this. You have to know that, going back to what is causing your mental trouble and going back to your traumas and thinking about them and dissecting them, analyzing them, writing about them, talking about them, this is going to destroy you. But in return, you're going to start to rebuild something that is on healthy grounds, that is strong, that is sustainable. And then the third, fourth, fifth, 10th, 100th time that you talk about these traumas, they're not going to affect you as much.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true because
Yeah.
it's released its like hold.
Of course.
Yeah.
I used to, I
They said
couldn't.
that what you resist persists.
Exactly. And it grows also. Of course, it grows. Because for me personally, for example, I would have never thought in my life that I would be sitting with you talking about, the August 4th blast, or talking about what I've been through at the time that it happened.
Yeah.
I would have never thought.
Were you
Never.
affected with PTSD?
Yeah. Yeah, I was diagnosed after a month and a half of that blast, and I couldn't talk to anyone. I couldn't see anyone for 6 months. I could not handle everything. Would trigger me. Everything would just like make me. It would make my nerves burn. Everything. It was really hard to go through. I felt really alone. I felt like no one understood what I was going through, and we have this stigma or like this perception on mental health in my country because it's a really like old-fashioned there's a lot of old-fashioned mentalities that if someone is having a hard time mentally, that he's crazy or she's crazy.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of like go through that as well, and I had to go through people like kind of dismissing my feelings and just like gaslighting me and just like telling me there's nothing wrong with you, you're fine, you're just, or in parallel telling me that you're going crazy, if you continue like this we're gonna put you in a mental
Wow.
hospital. Yeah, it was so hard.
Wow.
The only person who 100% understood was my sister. She is my younger sister, because she had been going through anxiety for the longest time, and she was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and she was the only one who kind of like comprehended what I was going through.
Wow.
And she kind of helped me. Yeah, she kind of took my hand and told me, you need to get the fuck up. Like, this is not you. Imagine, like, I was
Yeah.
so broken.
Yeah.
I wouldn't leave my bed.
Oh, wow.
Every time I would leave my bedroom, I would have a panic attack. I would have a PTSD flashback. I would have so many hard things I would go through. And what hurt the most, equally to what I was going through in terms of physical and mental symptoms, was the people who I loved at the time who were dismissing what I was feeling. I had to cut off a lot of people.
Wow.
Because I realized at the time who was actually there and who actually cared for my health, not just my physical health, my mental health. There were like 2 or 3 people out of like 15
Wow.
who were like...
And that was probably even more emotionally taxing.
Of course.
To
But
let
I mean,
go.
on the longer term, I was like, I cleansed, I filtered out my circle. I'm fine with, you know, right now, the circle of, you know, my husband, my two girls, my sister, my brothers, my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
And, you know, that extended family and that really, really tight circle of friends. I'm extremely, extremely happy with it. And I feel really blessed.
Yeah.
You know, to have it. I mean, I do have a lot of friends, and the nature of what I do kind of like forces me to be friends with everyone. But I'm talking about trust.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about people I let in. That's really, really a really small number right now.
Yeah, same
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
But that's I'm glad that you're at a place now that you've done like that really hard work of like letting go
Yeah.
of people that you thought you knew or thought knew you,
Yeah.
thought you could
It
trust.
wasn't easy.
I already know that can't be easy. That can't be easy. I want to talk a little bit about your as you got into the investigative journalism and the business. You said that your mom used to tell you to leave her alone because you had so many questions.
Yeah, all the time.
And what I see, like, and I don't know how much of it is true, but in the States, and it seems like our reporters, our news, they are restricted from really talking about what's really going on. It's like they have a script,
Yeah.
and anyone who's really, really paying attention can see that all of the outlets are
Are the
kind of saying the same thing. And so for you being so inquisitive and always questioning and being like, something is up there, that obviously got you in the door. But how, was it challenging? Did you have a lot of like pushback with like the stories that you wanted to cover or how you wanted to cover them?
Yeah. So the media realm in Lebanon, which is where I started, is so much different than the rest of the world, because essentially there's no judiciary system, like I said. So there's no one kind of like speculating and watching like what are the news channels saying, and so it's really like it's like a jungle. Truly, it's like a jungle. Like no one, whoever talks about the other just gets attacked from the other on social media, or they kind of like do protests in front of the news stations, or it's really, really like a chaos over there. But it's also good. Why? Because we have the freedom of speech.
Okay.
One thing I would say about Lebanon is that there is freedom of speech.
Okay.
Up until a certain point, but that's I would get into too much detail if I would explain why, but
Okay.
it's because there's an external a soft political power which is Iran, kind of like
Monitoring, okay.
controlling the narrative through a third party militia / terrorist group called Hezbollah. Yeah, so they're trying to like control the status quo and the narrative right now, but it wasn't the case when I was there, which was we would talk about anything. I mean, literally anything. So I started going live on my Instagram from these protests that were happening. But essentially before that, I would also be very vocal about a lot of social and, political issues, a lot of injustice stories. And I would kind of just like open my live or just open my camera and just talk. Like this person who had to go through this and that. This is the party that's responsible for solving his case. Where the fuck are you? Do something about it. And I would ask people to tag that, for example, that entity that's responsible. And it would cause a lot of engagement and a lot of people to kind of follow me and just be
You were like their voice.
Yeah, and they just wanted to always know like the updates or if there's anything new. They would also ask me if I knew any people who are having a hard time financially for them to support them. So I was kind of like an intermediate between a lot of people and those people who were facing a lot of challenges. And essentially when the protests erupted and I went back to Lebanon from Germany, which is where I was a refugee. So I went back to Lebanon, and I would open live from the protests. And honestly, I would just, so basically where there were riots, you would find me there. Because for me, protests, like, for example, what's happening right now in Palestine,
Yeah.
and the oppression that's happening on Gaza, like more than 15,000 people have died in the span of a month. And millions of people are protesting around the world.
Yeah.
What's happening is beyond what anyone can think of. When you look at videos of babies, you know, I don't want to
Yeah.
get too graphic, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
These protests that were happening all over the world, what have they done? Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
And I know that from experience, because peaceful protests, they do kind of put pressure on, you know, the political class, but they do absolutely nothing in terms of quick, pragmatic action. And at the time, I believed in that as well. So I wouldn't say violence was the only way, but it was the only option, because they were facing us with a lot of violence.
Yeah.
How the fuck were we supposed to go and hold these banners and just like stop killing us?
Yeah.
We're not gonna do that.
Yeah. Doesn't
A
make
lot
sense.
of people aren't gonna do that. People are losing their lives. They're losing their jobs.
Yeah.
Their families are being torn apart. Do you think they're gonna go and just like hold these
Right.
signs? Like,
Right.
we're coming here peacefully. Just stop killing us.
Yeah.
That
no,
wasn't gonna
doesn't work.
happen.
It doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work
Yeah.
like that. So when you're faced with oppression, you have to fight back with oppression. And essentially that's what was happening in the streets, and people were just like full on, they went like full on crazy. Like they were
Yeah.
just like throwing the rocks, throwing the tear gas bombs right back at the police. There was like armed clashes, rubber bullets, etc. And I wasn't taking part of that violence per se, but I was there to kind of take videos of that and just like take that picture out to the audience that I had on Instagram, for them to see what was actually happening and how they were treating these protesters with a lot of violence. And I think that was also, you know, a huge part of the change that we had made at the time.
Putting a light on what's
Putting a
actually
light on what's,
happening.
because if no one put a light, how are they supposed to feel pressured?
And were you not afraid?
Of course I was afraid. Of course I was afraid.
What was going through your mind? Like, you had fear, but your purpose just was bigger than
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Because whoever says that, you know, I was out there and I wasn't afraid and that's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. I mean, you're literally looking at hundreds of policemen and their fucking rifles and their sticks, and they're ready to attack
And you don't know who, if it's going to be you next.
and you don't
or-
know who's going to be next, and all of your friends are with you, and some of your family members, my cousins were with me, and essentially you're going to be afraid. You're in a place where you have to either fight or flight, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not a really like a chill place to be in, and whoever says that I wasn't afraid is honestly not being really truthful, because I
Yeah,
was
like, were you there? Like,
yeah, I mean, it was fucking scary. It was
Yeah.
so fucking scary. And essentially, yeah, the purpose and the bigger picture of what I was doing, that's what I kept telling myself during that time. And when you see, look, I'm already having goosebumps talking about it.
Yeah.
When you see your people standing with you, I cannot stress how much power this gives you. You would feel like you're scared, but you're ready to die. You're ready to die.
Yeah.
You're ready to go, because you have there's a collective power that's like there in
You're
your
not dying
soul.
in vain.
You're not
like-
dying in vain. And it's for a purpose. I'd rather go like that than just like, you know,
Yeah. No, I get it.
personally. I mean, it's a purpose. I'm fulfilling that purpose. Even though it was really, really scary and it was really risky, but just imagine you hearing like 10,000 people who are the exact same person as you in terms of
Yeah.
what they want, what they're calling for, what they want to see in terms of change. You're all calling in one voice for the same thing. When you hear that, like when you physically hear, like for example, I'm just gonna give an example of, you know, the protest, like Black Lives Matter. When you hear that, and in the tone of 10,000 people saying it simultaneously,
Yeah.
that gives you like that gives you
power.
that gives something to your soul. So it's really hard to kind of like let that go, and it's hard to kind of run away from that situation just because there's like tear gas bombs. And essentially the risk of dying, I calculated the risk of dying statistically, and it was really low, because
Okay.
out of like millions of people protesting, unfortunately like 20 people lost their lives, unfortunately.
How do you feel knowing that I mean, I commend you because it is courageous. It's really courageous. And as a woman, to even put yourself in that position, how do you feel about people that don't participate in the protest, that are like, okay, I'm going to send in money, or I'm just going to pray, or I'm going to watch, I'm going to call a number or sign a petition. How do you feel about those people that are, I guess, don't want to participate in that way, in that physical way?
Yeah.
Does it hurt you? Are you upset? Or are you just like, I'm gonna do it? Or like, what is your perception of those kind
Yeah.
of people?
So that's a really good question. So for me, there's two answers to this. One, of course, I would feel disappointed because the more people on the ground, the more pressure you're going to put, essentially. So the faster the change is going to happen. But at the same time, you have to face, reality, and to understand that it's not for everyone. I mean, it really takes a lot of strength and courage to kind of just
Yeah.
like go down on the street and do all these things. And for me, as long as people are participating, even with, like you said, prayers, or just like signing petitions, watching the news, like talking about it on social media, that's also fine. Like, do you, if that's the maximum that you can do, then that's also, fine. Some people have children, some people have jobs that they can't,
Yeah.
leave to go protest 24/7. And that's totally understandable, because they would be putting the lives of their children, or, their own lives at risk.
Yeah.
And, it's really it's not an easy thing to do, and it's not for everyone, but it is disappointing that it can't be for everyone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But statistically, around the world, in all revolutions, some of the biggest revolutions that actually took down regimes were only done by 15% of the population. So that really kind of like gave us some motive to go through with it.
That this can actually
happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Is there anything that you would specifically like advise someone to do that might be a little fearful for whatever reason, losing a job, have children, that how they could support protests and movements and changing the narrative, or changing actually what's happening?
Yeah. One thing that's good right now is how the media landscape is changing and how TV is dying. So that really comes in the favor of all these social issues and these causes that that are happening all over the world, and the kind of pressure that is being done on social media, although not in all cases, but is at least changing the narrative of individuals in society when it comes to a certain a social issue or a certain cause. So what I would say is, don't be afraid to be vocal about what you believe in, because if you're not going to be vocal, then who is? Because some people would say, there's a lot of people already like speaking about this, speaking about these hard things that are happening all over the world, speaking about this genocide that's happening in Palestine, speaking about the racial oppression and the systematic racism that's happening in the U.S. But no, I mean, if every single person would say that to themselves, like there's someone else already talking about it, who's going to be left to speak? And the more the merrier, the more the better. So if you have something that you believe in and something that you want to fight for, go ahead and do it. But of course, I can't advise people to leave their jobs and, leave their whole lives and just go put their soul into those, these causes, because that's not really also sustainable at the same time.
So just kind of reminding them that, okay, this is your opportunity to speak out on something that you believe in, because if you don't use your voice, someone else's voice is going to replace yours.
Of course. And it's not just about social media. When I say vocal, I say be vocal. I mean literally be vocal. not just on camera. Be vocal as a person.
Yeah.
Like when I'm
Lead.
sitting with you off camera right now,
Yeah.
and we're talking, I would like to talk to you about, I would like to know more about, the movement that happened in the US because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
So that I can be vocal about it with people who are uneducated about it. Because there's a lot of misinformation happening right now.
Yeah.
And disinformation that's happening right now. And that's an individual responsibility to kind of educate yourself from the right sources. And I can't stress the right sources enough because I see what happens when people circulate news that's not real or that's fake.
Yeah.
So when you educate yourself in the proper way and you kind of like become vocal about it and you talk about it off camera with people and like in social settings and I don't know with
It
your
gets a-
mom,
Yeah.
with your friends, you would be causing like you wouldn't even notice it, but you would be causing like a, oh okay, now I get it, and someone else,
Yeah.
and then they could be doing the same thing to others, and then that butterfly effect would get into place, and you would be kind of like causing being a part of the change without even knowing it. You're not going to be directly causing it, but you're going to be a part of it.
Being a
So
part.
when you want change to happen, it starts
The self.
with yourself. So this is what that quote means. People are very, very quick to just like post these quotes, but what do they actually mean?
Yeah.
That change starts within yourself. It means change how you speak to yourself about it. Change how you talk about it to people.
Yeah. In close
Of course,
quarters.
it starts with, the closer circle, and that's how
And it spreads out wide.
spreads out.
Well, that's good. That's good to know because I know that when it comes to these, I'm one of those people that is like, where is the truth? Where is the source that I can rely on? Because in times I'll like share a message and then I'll be like, and then find out later, like, dang, was that even the right, information? So
And we've seen this a lot in, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that just happened.
Yeah.
A lot.
So many different sources and it's like, dang, not really knowing what to
believe.
It's challenging. We have just a little bit more time, and I have a few more things that I want to talk about. Okay, so let me give me about 10 more minutes. What was the when as far as CNN? Did you enjoy your time there?
Yeah, but I mean, it was like I told you, it was like business journalism. It was
So it wasn't really
economic news.
okay.
Like markets and stocks and the energy markets, sustainability, and I love it and I'm very grateful for that opportunity, but it wasn't what I adore doing, and if I'm not doing something I absolutely love, I can't continue with it.
Is that kind of the reason why you decided it's like, oh, no more?
Yeah.
Okay. You were like, this is not my soul's purpose.
No. Yeah, 100%. I can't. I just can't. I cannot. I cannot give my utmost potential, and I cannot put 100%, 150% effort like I do with doing something that I absolutely adore and love.
Yeah.
Which is investigative journalism. Yeah. So that's kind of why. But I mean, I am venturing off into like my own thing, and I'm also like joining another TV. That's where my role is gonna be mainly like investigative journalism, and
That's
I'm super
exciting.
excited. I'm super excited.
That's exciting.
Super excited. Like it's been 3 years since I've done that.
Okay.
And I'm really excited to go back. I'm gonna be extremely like vocal again on social media about all these, social cases and these atrocities that are happening.
Yeah.
Everywhere in the world. And yeah,
Let's go.
Yeah.
Now tell me, you're newly married.
Yeah.
And so with your husband, he's a support system. I'm assuming. How does he feel? Because you put yourself out there. You speak about the things that people are terrified to speak about. That there's so many things that people are hushed when they speak about, the truth. And on a day-to-day, is there a certain amount of anxiety that you deal with or that your husband may see and be like wanting to protect you from that? Or is he like, babe, go for it? Like, what is that dynamic for you?
So it's a mix, but my husband is honestly like the biggest support system ever. Like he's incredible. And actually I feel like he told me that one of the first things that kind of attracted him to me was how vocal I was and how fearless I was.
Yeah.
And he just absolutely adored that. And he wouldn't want to kind of like suppress that in me just to protect me. But at the same time, if he sees something that is a bit like too extra or just like too much, he would tell me like, babe, calm down. Calm down. Like, I don't want to be picking you up from prison or something.
Right.
Like, I love you and I want you to stay next to me and I don't want anything to
Yeah.
happen to you. But he's super supportive. I mean, I've never seen a man this supportive of another woman in my life.
Oh, that's beautiful.
In my life. And I've seen a lot of, people and I've met
Different
a lot
dynamics.
of people. Yes.
Yeah.
And he's just the kindest soul and he's just the most supportive human being on this planet when it comes to like my interests and my safety and my health and my happiness and everything. He just makes he's incredible. He's like Superman.
We love
He just
that.
always makes sure that everything I need is there. He's a provider by nature.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's not the type of man that are like, I'm gonna provide for you, but
Control.
set your ass down.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
He is a provider, but go ahead and do go
Yeah.
ahead and be you, and I'm gonna be right there behind you.
Sometimes
To
in
protect you.
relationships, I use the analogy of like when a man sees like a butterfly and they're so attracted to it. They're like, oh, it's beautiful. And then once they have it, they're like, they put it in a jar and they're like, you just stay right there. And it's like, well, now you killed the butterfly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's the opposite of that. He believes in, my own personal space and my own personal freedom, and there's within that aspect the factor of trust is what actually makes it work, because we trust each other so much and we know for a fact that he's never gonna leave me or just do anything that might hurt me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So therefore you're comfortable with giving that person all the space that he needs to be himself, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And what I love about it, I don't want my marriage to be like, I want to do whatever I want and it's none of your business, and you do whatever I want, it's none of my business. I don't want that kind of space between us. I love how he gives me my freedom and what I want, and at the same time he's there to kind of like protect me and guide me and like advise me if I'm doing anything wrong or if there's anything that's above limits. Like, I love the combination of that. This chivalry is what they call it, I think.
Yeah.
Which is it's becoming extinct.
Yeah, it's
So I
it's
feel
pretty
really
rare.
lucky.
Yeah, it's like your angel came and found you. Because considering all of what you've been through and the different things that you've seen in relationships and just politics, the world, and then to have this person come and just show up.
I always tell him that, honestly, that same word. I tell him that you're like an angel that found me, and God put you in my life because no one else in the world besides you would have been able to help me get out of that, as that place that I was in. It was a very dark place, kind of like, as much as I would explain to you, honestly, it was somewhere that is extremely, extremely horrifying. So this was like meant to be. It was like destiny,
Yeah. Do you think that there's anything that you've done, like you've been in therapy, you've worked through a lot. Do you think that also helped you be ready to receive your angel, like your husband, doing some of your own inner work to get here?
That's really interesting that you pointed that out, because I had a hard time receiving love, and I had a hard time receiving good treatment, and I had a hard time accepting what I deserved, and I thought that I deserved way, way less than what Rani, my husband, gives me right now. And that's because of so many things, essentially what I've been through, in my life, being a refugee.
Yeah.
For living in a refugee camp for 6 months, you would really like think of yourself in a way that's not really the best when you get out of that place. And it was honestly like one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through. And the way that he showed up and not only loved me, but taught me how to love myself. Because I mean, I was responsible for kind of like making sure that happens and for treating myself that way. But having someone to kind of guide you and talk to you and help you understand is
Yeah.
not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's on the contrary, it's a very good thing.
Yeah. Being
So
patient with you.
he was so patient.
Mm-hmm.
He was so patient. And if he wasn't that patient, I don't think we would have ended up getting married. He used to always, like, whenever I had these outbursts or these, because I had a lot of issues while I was in the healing process. It's
Yeah.
not easy
Yeah, I know.
when you're opening all that trauma inside. And he would just be patient. He would understand that it's not about him, that I'm projecting from something else that happened. And he would face that anger and these negative emotions with so much love and support. Because he would look at me and see, like, I see that you're like a broken girl. Like he told me, he would tell me that I would see a broken girl and I just want to hug and protect you and tell you that it's okay.
Yeah.
And that you're safe now and that you don't have to act this way or have all these angry outbursts or just like shout and cry and like it's okay. He wouldn't take it personal. And that takes a lot of strength and honestly intelligence
Yeah.
to
That
to
emotional
dissect that.
intelligence.
Yes, and to not take it personal because you know that this person is just projecting or just really going through it.
Yeah.
You would kind of like be there to support them even if they're in that bad. So this is what I mean by it's unconditional love
Yeah.
is what he gives me because he honestly he's like almost half the reason of why I'm in such a better place right now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
We love him. I have two more questions before we finish up. So I want to know how has your idea of success evolved over the years of you just going after your passion?
So success is subjective. It's very subjective.
I agree. Yeah.
Because some people might resonate more with financial success, others might resonate more with personal mental success by being happy, and others would resonate more with family success, like having a healthy family, etc. So my idea of success is a combination of things. It's obviously materialist. It's a bit material. It's also family, and it's personal, like happiness. And that's how my my perception of success evolved with time. So first of all, I would always say that success is me having my dream job or opening my business and becoming a millionaire, and that's how I'm gonna become successful. But then when I kind of got to my dream job, I realized that I feel like I'm not successful
Still
yet.
wasn't there. You still didn't have that.
And I was kind of battling with that idea, like, is it imposter syndrome or is it what is going on with me? Like, why do I not feel like I'm successful? Although everyone around me is saying like, wow, you're doing a good job, etc. And I appreciate, as much as I appreciate that positive, comments, I always felt like I'm not there yet. So what is my perception of success? And I realized that how I view success goes in parallel with how I feel about what people think of me. Because the less I cared about how people think of me, the more I felt like I think success is content. Like being content with what you have, that's success for me. But like I said, it's very subjective.
Yeah.
So the less I gave a shit about what people would say or think about me, the more successful I felt, because I realized that having the money isn't really all what it takes. There's a lot of people who have a lot of money but are just not content.
Still not content.
So being successful is being happy and content with what you have, regardless of what others are saying or thinking about you. So that's success for me.
Yeah. And so you were able to, it's just like, it's an internal thing.
Yeah.
It's how you feel about yourself and what you have going on, and not everyone's voice being in the
If it
picture.
was up to me, I would have that word disappear from from the dictionary.
Success.
Because what is success and failure?
Yeah, yeah.
Success is
Yeah.
being content. Failure is learning. It's not. It doesn't exist for me. So that's not like something I would, like it's not believing, but I wouldn't use the word like, for example, failure. Like I failed. Like I had a hard time doing it. I did not achieve it, but I learned that the way to do it is this, this, and that. So next time, I'm gonna do it this and that,
Yeah.
and this and that way.
Yeah.
So this is what for me. It's very subjective. It's like a very vague word. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Success is not on paper.
Of course
it's
not.
whatever you've realized it to
Yeah.
be. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I guess I want to leave on this note because to me the way you've shared your story today and the way you've described yourself is that you've had this passion of questioning and pushing the envelope ever since you were little, and it feels like you still very much so have like that inner child that's in you that keeps you like going. What would you tell your little girl self today that you've learned that you feel like would have, just maybe helped her and comforted her as you were growing?
So as a child, when I would feel hurt or sad, I would do one thing. I would run to my room, and I would hide under the bed sheets for hours, for hours and hours. So I feel like with what I've learned and with what I've seen, I would tell that girl to get out of that hiding that you're doing, because it's not going to serve you anything but more and more like doubt in yourself, and more negativity, and more like distrust in others because of that isolation that I was trying to do for myself. And I would also tell that girl that, because I've been through a really rough childhood, I would give her the answers that she was looking for at the time, because I feel like maybe it wouldn't have been as harsh as it was on her, by her like understanding like why this is happening to you, and what is gonna. I would show her like where I am right now, and
Yeah.
and tell her like, look, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing of all is that I would kind of just like teach her how to not be that sensitive, because I feel like as much as it's important to be sensitive, it could also destroy you. It's really, really hard to deal with it. And sensitivity is a very fragile thing. And the negatives are, as they're equal to the positives that it has, if not more, because someone who's sensitive is more prone to having, that kind of pain inside.
Yeah.
That's hard to deal with. So I would kind of like explain to her that, you're going to be fine. You're going to turn out to be a very strong girl, woman, and you're going to marry that
Angel.
that you dream of, and that I used to like always think of myself, at my wedding, and how I walk down the aisle, and I would tell her that this is gonna happen, and I would apologize for like what she had to go through from the closest people to her,
Yeah.
and tell her that it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I have to hug you. That was amazing.
I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to this podcast till the very end. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope that all of you learned as little as a small piece of information, or got as little as a small ray of hope for whatever it is that you're looking forward to. I genuinely believe that I was talking from the bottom of my soul and the bottom of my heart. So I hope that resonates with you, and I hope that reaches your soul and your heart as well. You can reach me on my Instagram at Widad Taleb, for any questions that you might have, or anything that you want to tell me. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you.